Good morning, everybody. Here we are Friday morning. We get this great opportunity to get our dose of God's Word, to wind our week up and get our day started off. Hey, this morning I'm going to spend a few moments in a conversation that Jesus had with four of his disciples. We're going to be looking at just a handful of passages in Mark 13, but this particular passage also has parallels in Matthew 24 and in Luke 21. And what this is dealing with is so many today hold these passages as the end of the world or has something to do with Jesus' second coming. But let's just slow down and just look at what Jesus actually said and what's actually written. Mark chapter 13 and beginning in verse 1 says that as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Teacher, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here." Okay, just slow down, just verse 1. What's going on? Well, just prior to this, they were in the temple. The setting, the account of the woman with the two mites threw them in there. They're leaving the temple at this point, okay? So notice what it says. They're leaving the temple. And one of the disciples is speaking about the temple, making reference to the stones and the buildings and how wonderful, how beautiful, how glorious, how grand that they are. So keep this in mind. That's the setting. That's the foundation for the conversation that's going to follow. So he's talking about the temple. Now, verse 2. And Jesus answered and said to him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down." All right, so statement was made about the buildings, the temples, as they're walking out of the temple. Jesus is speaking in reference to that statement of the temple and its buildings. And he said that there's going to come a time where one stone will not be left upon another. So here we have statement about the temple itself. Jesus's response to that statement was about the temple itself. Now, verse 3. Now, as he sat on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked privately. So they're asking something here. Now, what are they going to be asking about? It says, verse 4, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign when all these things will be fulfilled?" Now, remember, verse 1, they were coming out of the temple. Look how great these buildings are. Verse 2, Jesus' response to that statement, they're all coming down. Verse 3, Peter, James, John, and Andrew are with Jesus. And they said, "Explain to us." Verse 4, "Tell us, when will these things be?" Well, what things? What were they just talking about? Armageddon, Jesus coming back, Jesus setting up a throne and rebuilding. Well, what were they just talking about? They were just talking. Jesus would just say this. They're all coming down. So there's that. Well, when? When is it coming down? What's going to be the signs of these things to come? Now, we just don't have the time to go in and dissect the entire chapter about the signs. And, he's going to talk about wars and rumors of wars. And, again, so many take these three passages, these three chapters, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, and automatically apply them to the things concerning the second coming of Christ. But context is everything, my friend. That may be the traditional teaching. That may be what everybody teaches. That may be what everybody believes. But what does the text actually say? It doesn't say anything about Armageddon. It doesn't say anything about Jesus reigning on earth. It doesn't say anything about any of that. It's just Jesus just said the temple's coming down. It's not going to be, not that it's going to be rebuilt, but he said it's going to come down. Now, we have a time in history where that actually took place. about 40 years later, after Jesus made this statement, Rome indeed come and destroy and leveled Jerusalem in AD 70. You can read some of the historians of that time, Josephus for one, and it will tell you, he gives this this really great account of what's going on inside the city. And so much of that period of time lines up with exactly the things that Jesus describes in his response later on in this. Matthew 24 is probably the most detailed of these three accounts. But friends, I want you to understand context is everything. We can't take a context and turn it into something that Jesus didn't even talk about. And that's what's happened with this. And I know it can be very difficult because that's what these bigwig prime time teachers, that's what they're turning out. Out of these Bible colleges and seminaries, you can take these online courses and they're going to lead you to that. But just because the majority teaches something, it doesn't change the simplicity of what Jesus actually said. And so I want you to understand that. And there's your dose of God's Word today. Is that here in these three contexts, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke chapter 21, it's not in reference. It's not in reference to the judgment. It's not in reference to the return of Christ. He's talking about, it's going to be the fulfillment of Daniel's prophecies of that fourth beast, which was Rome, because the first beast started with Nebuchadnezzar. You go back to Daniel 2 and you'll see that. And then the last kingdom, each beast was a kingdom. And the last kingdom is the kingdom of Christ. His ultimate reign and authority, which we are now in. And so really this is a fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy. Not the returning of Christ, but the destroying of the beginning of the destroying of that last beast. I know that's a deep subject, but friend, if you just keep it simple, just stay with the context, regardless of what the popular teaching of a text is, it doesn't change the simplicity of what the Bible actually says. Hey, hope it'll do you some good. Hope it'll get your wheels turning. Go back and look at this, study this, and just examine it and pray that God give you some understanding to the truth of what these things teach. Hey, I hope you all have a great day. Lord willing, we'll get back Monday morning and get our week and our day kicked off and going in the right direction. Till then, I hope you have a great day. We'll see you then.